5:18 this afternoon when Judge R.T. Scales read the jury's verdict and its decision on punishment. The day had gone just about as everyone had expected it to for a while. A.D. McCurley, the deputy who was shot and got away, testified. He corroborated the stories as they had been told before. At 1 o'clock this afternoon, the jury came back in. Judge Scales read his charge to the jury, and at 1:15, Doug Mulder, the first assistant district attorney for Dallas County, began his final charge to the jury. He talked for 30 minutes. At 15 minutes before 2 o'clock, the defense counsel for both Guzman and Lopez waived their right to talk to the jury, and the jury was released. They went upstairs, talked for 30 minutes, came back downstairs, and said that both men were guilty of murder with malice aforethought. Then, the final round of arguments before the jury, and tears came to the eyes of courtroom observers. Don Metcalfe and Frank Holbrook, both speaking for their clients, the defendants, brought tears to the eyes of some as they pleaded for their lives. They said, "Give them 1,000 years if you must. Give them 1,500 years, but spare their lives." Doug Mulder and his boss, the district attorney of Dallas County, Henry Wade, both stood up, and they said that there is no punishment for a murder such as this but the death sentence. Henry Wade said that he believed that the only way these men could be punished and the only deterrent to crime in America today was for juries to take definitive action. I talked with him about the way the trial went and his feelings about it. The issue came up very strongly of the death sentence as a possible deterrent to crime. How do you feel about that? Is that true in your judgment?
Well, of course, my personal judgment, I don't think it is. Your daily newspapers would verify the fact that crime seems to be on an increase, so it's a deterrent. I don't know where the state can show you that it has been.
Are you going with? The pleadings of the attorneys are all over, and the case is decided now. But as Holbrook said, it will be 5 years through the various appellate courts before any sentence is served. And it is altogether possible that in September, when the Supreme Court meets again, they may determine that under the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, the death penalty is an unusual and cruel punishment. There is something else that has to be contemplated here. The probability is that both men will be out of prison within 17 years. That is the possibility which has to be considered, provided the death penalty is not allowed to stand. Jerry Taff, Channel 8 News on the Move, Belton.
I really don't know. Honest to goodness, I really don't know. When these proposals came out, we were stunned speechless. We just didn't know. My daughter has 3 more years in high school, and my son has 1 more year. And I just frankly don't know what we'll do.
If the court orders your children and others to be bused to other parts of the city, will you comply with that court order?
No, I will not. My daughter will not be bused.
What will you do then?
I don't know. I really don't know. I guess she just won't go to school. But I can't afford. We have 3 automobiles. We have one for my son. I have one, and my husband has one. And she had planned on riding to school with her brother in his automobile. We can't afford 4 automobiles, and we can't afford to pay her bus fare clear across town when he's going to our school in our neighborhood, where his expense would be about half of what hers would be.
We have been negotiating with the plumbers, locals in both Dallas and Fort Worth all day today and all day yesterday and all day Friday. And at the present time, there is a divergence between both the working rules and the money in the contract negotiations.
How close are you?
We're pretty far apart.
What happens if an agreement is not reached?
Well, the plumbers in both Dallas and Fort Worth, their contract expires at midnight tomorrow night. And it will be up to the union to see what they want to do. Yeah, see, there's some 20 other unions in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that have agreed to a settlement that expire tomorrow night. We've settled with all them.
How many people are you talking about in the unions?
Roughly in the plumbers union, it'd be somewhere around 1,200 men. But in all the other unions, you're reaching anywhere from 20 to 40,000 men in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area.
General, wings are being deactivated and various units are being reassigned, and a lot of people are having trouble in the reserves finding a slot. Does this mean the reserves are being more or less phased out?
No, not at all, Jay. I think what we have here in effect is a streamlining of our reserve forces, and particularly with the 512th Wing, it's a streamlining of the management structure.
Is this going on all over the country?
Yes, to some degree.
It seems that Texas has more or less been picked on lately with the closing of several air bases and the disbanding of several active wings. Does this indicate a lack of faith in the state?
No, not at all. I think we have to say that we've been fortunate here in Texas, in this particular case, to have had 3 reserve wings, while there are only 13 wings total. So we had 3 out of the 13, 1 in San Antonio, 1 in Houston, and 1 here at Carswell. And so we're still just, we're being treated fairly in the state of Texas.
The justice of the peace system is as American as John Wayne and Mom's apple pie. It's not something that's normally questioned. It just exists and always has. But lately, people have been wondering why the system has lingered on. Back in the horse and buggy days, if a man had minor legal business to transact, it was a day's ride, say from Grapevine into Fort Worth and back home, so justice precincts were established. In some cases, they grew into minor political dynasties, with the JP virtually autonomous in his district. But today, with every part of the county within a 30-minute drive of the Tarrant County Courthouse, the major need for the justice system has vanished. When the Tarrant Commissioners meet next Wednesday, Judge Howard Green is going to take the first step.
Next week, I plan to offer a proposal to the Tarrant County Commissioners Court to eliminate 4 of our peace justices and 4 of our constables within Tarrant County. This can be done according to our state constitution, and there are legal opinions and court contests that indicate that this can be done at this time.
In his proposal, Judge Green says that he plans to leave intact such precincts as Arlington, with enough population and enough of a caseload to justify a sub-courthouse. Green says that the elimination of 4 JP and 4 constable posts should save the county better than $65,000 a year. More important, if the others on the Commissioners Court agree with the idea, it'll be an important first step toward modernizing and streamlining an archaic county government. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move at the Tarrant County Courthouse.
About a decade ago, Dallas City Fathers got the idea that it would be a good idea to enclose the central business district in a freeway loop. They decided to build an east-west freeway connecting Simmons with North Central, and they decided to name it after one of the city's fathers, John Woodall Rogers. The work started on Woodall Rogers Freeway, and work stopped. Mr. Rogers is dead now, and work is still stopped on Woodall Rogers Freeway. Well, yesterday, the Dallas City Council paved the way, so to speak, for work to start again on Woodall Rogers Freeway. They authorized for condemnation the last major parcel of land on the right-of-way. Now, the city and county have gotten together to finance the acquisition of right-of-way for the freeway, and the city has done the acquiring of the freeway. So the land is all here. The only thing remaining now is for the State Highway Department to construct the rest of the freeway. The access roads for the freeway are built from Central to Field Street downtown. The freeway isn't. The freeway is a parking lot. Now the Highway Department can go ahead with construction of the rest of the freeway as soon as they get federal funds. The Highway Department is doing the construction. The federal government is financing the construction. And nobody seems to know for sure exactly when construction will continue on Woodall Rogers Freeway. This is Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on Woodall Rogers Freeway. Not necessarily on the move.
Violating the law, and that they should not attempt to influence the court in any way. I think that we should abide by the Supreme Court's ruling, and whatever that is, as citizens, this is what we will have to live by. I think that we set in bad examples for our children when we advocate that no, we are not going to, this is basically what they're saying, no, we're not going to comply with the law of the land.
But isn't Judge Taylor going to, so to speak, dictate the law of the land as it pertains to Dallas?
I would think so, but I think he has a responsibility to do the thing that's called for in the ruling.
We have no specific resolution that will be considered by the Resolutions Committee, and if passed by that committee, considered by the membership in Assembly. However, at our last Board of Directors meeting, the State Bar Board of Directors approved a report of one of our committees. We call it Legal Services Civil, in which certain guidelines were adopted for the consideration by the State Bar of applications of OEO legal aid associations in connection with their funding or refunding. On a death penalty case, jury appeal is automatic. They've got to go to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and then it'll go into the federal courts, and like most other murder cases, you're 3.5, 4 to 5 years away from actual sentence being probably carried out.
Well, the matter involves the school board, that's true, but it involves many of our citizens, and it involves matters such as planning and such as thoroughfares and such as public health and public safety and public welfare, which are matters for the city council.
In other words, the council feels that it involves matters which transcend the authority of the school board itself.
Well, not necessarily do they transcend it, but they actually so-called slop over into the city's domain.
Now, they have given you what might be called carte blanche in the matter. What are you doing?
Well, the thing we're doing right now, of course, is researching the law to determine whether or not we have a legal position as well as a practical position.
What will you advise the council then when you finish your research?
I'll advise them whether or not legally I think we have a position and a leg to stand on in the case, and if so, why then we will file a motion.
The hospital, if approved, will be called the Fort Worth Medical Complex, and it's slated to be located here in the downtown section of Fort Worth. It will apparently consist of two buildings, one a hospital, the other an office building to house some 90 physicians. The proposal will be made tonight in the Council of Governments Police Training Academy in Arlington by two groups. One, a group of about 24 area doctors calling themselves Medical Plaza, who will own the building and then lease it to the second group, the American Medicorps Incorporated, a national corporation who will actually run the hospital. There is direct opposition to the facility. The Tarrant County Hospital Coordinating Board has gone on record as opposing the new hospital, saying Fort Worth doesn't have the community need to sustain another 300 beds, what with 4 major hospitals already in the area. The Council of Governments Health Facilities Review Committee will hear the proposal tonight. It'll make its decision and then pass it along to the Board of Directors, which is scheduled for a noon meeting tomorrow. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth. The issue at hand is whether or not beer can be sold for off-premise consumption, and that in itself apparently seems to account for the relatively light voter turnout. If passed, beer can be sold if the operator has a valid license, but it must be consumed someplace other than where it was purchased. Had the issue been for open bars and on-premise consumption, there might have been a little bit more pro and con. But so far, only one group has shown any organization, and that was in opposition to the measure. The
group of young people from one of the churches applied for a permit to put up a display showing what they say could be the effects of alcohol. Expectations are that about 700 people in Benbrook will cast ballots in this election. The absentee ballots closed, however. Only 15 voters had expressed their pleasure. The polls will close tonight at 7. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News, on the move, Benbrook.
I don't know whether they're illegal or whether they're not illegal. Seems to me we have the right to say what we feel and to do what we feel. We don't really know what to do. We do know that we are not going to sit back and let them send our children 10, 15 miles across the city of Dallas. Dallas is too large to bus in.
Well, is this a racial question?
No, not at all, because I think that it's going to hurt everyone when they try to bus these little bitty kids that are 6 years old. It's just ridiculous to put them on a bus and send them across town. And I think it would be a very traumatic experience for these little fellows.
It has been suggested, Mrs. Mayfield, that maybe the only answer is integrated neighborhoods. Is this an answer, or is it even feasible?
I'm not opposed at all to an integrated neighborhood. If people want to work as hard as I and my husband have worked, I've worked for about 18 years now, so we can have the type of home that we want and live in the neighborhood that we want. And one of the first questions that we asked when we moved to our present home was, what school would our child go to?
Well, because the state had agreed to forego a few things, including confession, several things that the state just didn't go into, so the witnesses we were prepared to put on, we didn't need them, really.
Now, I understand there was a doctor from El Paso who would perhaps have been called in had you decided to bring witnesses. What was that about?
Now, I don't know about a doctor from El Paso. We had one doctor from Dallas that we had planned on using, but we decided against it just today.
What would his testimony have been?
That Rene Adolpho Guzman was insane at the time of this alleged occurrence on February 15th, 71. But we didn't think that we had enough, and poor Rene, he wasn't able to get the number of doctors that could have given us the weight that we would need to get that across.
Is Rene Guzman insane?
We believe he was temporarily insane at the time this occurred, but proving it was something else, and the disadvantages of going into that far outweighed what we might have gained by going that route.